Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be ranking the GAC Omicrons. I want to get this video out at least in enough time for you guys to see this before GAC starts. I've been doing a lot of thinking on this, and I've kind of come up with my listing. We've included some of the newer characters, right? We've got Aphra, Hondo in here. A couple things I want to mention before we get into this, right? So I'm going to go over to my characters here, and I think this might be a small spoiler. Oh, perfect. All right. So there we go. It wasn't a small spoiler. Guys, when I do these rankings, right, what I'm looking at is not only, like I said, and I'll use Radis here as an example, right? I not only take into account whether or not the Omicron is good, right? But you've got to understand, is it good on offense? Is it good on defense? Is it good on both? And also, like, what is it changing in that character, right? And I want to keep that in mind, right? Like, does the Omicron inherently change what that character can do in terms of whether countering teams or the other side of this, right? In terms of how it has to get countered, right? So let's get into the list, guys. And let's start first with our king tier, Wampa. Now, obviously, like, in reality, right, Wampa belongs in this royalty tier, but we give him a tier to himself because he is our king. Guys, if you want to see Wampa hit Relic 8 live on stream, I'll host a special stream. We'll take Wampa to Relic 8. All you need to do, get this channel to 5,000 subscribers, guys, right? But why does this Omicron first? Wampa would be, without it, is just, you'd be lucky to use him, right? Like, I'd just be flat out honest. Our king, without his Omicron, is very, very poor. But with the Omicron, guys, he can not only counter, I've countered Sith Eternal before, I've countered Starkiller, I had Inversio teams, Rebel Fighters. He counters a lot of stuff because of this protection up. General Grievous is another thing he takes care of, and I love that he counters Grievous because Grievous is one of those teams that will take banners from you. There's not a lot of good consistent counters to Grievous for max banners, and Wampa is one of those. A lot of people will say, oh, that's a waste of a character, but like, that's a fantastic use. You're taking a character that you otherwise wouldn't have used, and you're getting almost full banners for it, guys. So Wampa belongs in that tier as far as just what he can counter. Obviously, he's only offensive, but that's okay. He's a solo, and so to me, a solo character on offense is worth as much as being able to place a team on offense or defense, right? So then we have our royalty tier. And I'm just going to say that Reva, regardless of if she's in the game or not right now, she belongs in this royalty tier. I'm putting her in here. It's important. She's going to be a fantastic Galactic Legend level character inside of Grand Arena. Just put it there now. Other character in here, we've got Darth Malgus, right? Darth Malgus still belongs in here. Even without his Datacron, he's still a fantastic character in Grand Arena. I wouldn't say that he's you've got to use a Galactic Legend now, but you've got to use something good. Like General Skywalker is about as low as you can go as far as countering him. Otherwise, you're probably using your own Omicrons to beat him. Just a really fantastic character inside of Grand Arena, and one that you'll have his team built so that by the time you unlock him, it's not like you need to, build up this whole new team, right? Like you've already got the Sith Empire. He's got 3 Omicrons, and I'm not going to rate these in order of like unique, this, that, right? Like you kind of find which one is going to be the best, like leadership first, right? What I'll say is that like I rank this in terms of these are the characters I would apply Omicrons on. I gave him all 3 of them, and I don't have any regrets, right? I think that was a fantastic decision on my part. Next on this list is Darth Traya. She got a new Omicron. You guys know that she has been like countering Lord Vader. She can beat Jabba. She just seems to be able to really handle some Galactic Legends. I don't know if she could beat Jedi Master Luke. I don't know if I've seen that yet. I'm curious how she performs in 3v3 because a lot of people have been using like a Savage Press or Darth Talon inside of her team. So I'm curious how that changes her, but I really think she belongs in this royalty tier just for what she's going to be able to do. This Omicron, it's on her unique. And that's why she belongs, like I would say A tier, but because it's on her unique, you can put her with other characters and get all of these bonuses, right? So you could put her under Sith Eternal with the Sith Trio, and you've got a fantastic unit, right? That because this is a unique Omicron, it loses a little bit of value to say that if you kill Traya, the Omicron goes away. But at the same time, it allows you to use another character's unique, leadership and take advantage of this unique. So I think this is really good. Obviously, it's going to call out Darth Talon, Darth Nihilus, and Scion in here, but And that's where I think it runs best is with her lead, but you can still use it in other ways. So she belongs in this royalty tier, guys. All right, Savage Press is also up here. This is another one where, similar to Wampa, he's a character that, without his Omicron, not really a ton of use. With his Omicron, he's fantastic. Mine is Relic 3 and still does work. He can solo a lot of teams. He can, fit into squads like in a 5v5. I've used him with Darth Trey to help beat Lord Vader. Just a really, really good character. Overall, fantastic. I think that it's what we needed for him to get him to that tier. Really well worth it, guys. Just something that I think is completely revolutionized. I'd say these two Omicrons, the Treya and Savage Press, have completely revolutionized how good Sith are inside of Grand Arena. All right, next one here, Ben Swallow. Guys, inside Grand Arena, he makes that Rey puzzle so difficult. It really stopped a lot of the counters that you're used to seeing, right? That you no longer can just take Sith Eternal and Watt against a Rey with Ben Solo in that team, because he can apply healing immunity with his one move here. Right here, he inflicts healing immunity, which can't be copied, dispelled, evaded, or resisted, right? Like, that is brutal. His kit is designed with Galactic Legend Rey in mind, but he still belongs in this royalty tier because once you have them together, they're a formidable unit. They're just something that is so, so difficult to take out. It's unbelievable how good he has made Rey. I should say how much better he's made Rey. Reva, I don't need to go into all of her stuff because she's not in the game yet. We haven't really seen it, but we know that she's going to be able to counter Galactic Legends. I think she is going to be basically ending Kenobi's reign in Grand Arena, obviously without Datacrons and stuff, but like Kenobi has had a really good run in Grand Arena, and I think she's going to be ending that, which will help a lot of players in the end game, right? Provide them more counters. It's going to force people to change defenses. So I'm very curious to see what the impact of her being in the game is. All right, so that's our royalty tier, right? Those are our royalty tiers, the king tier, royalty tier, Wampa is in this tier, but I give him a tier on his own because he is my king. So next we have the A+ tier in 5v5, which is Dr. Aphra. I have her called out separately because her Omicrons are specific to 5v5 Grand Arena, right? While in 5v5 Grand Arenas, right? That's where her Omicrons are, like, again, they're structured around that. And I don't know, with them, she's going to be unbelievably good, right? Just like unbelievably good with these Omicrons. But because they're 5v5, I can't put her in the royalty tier where I think she would belong. But, I think she'll be more offensive than defensive, but I still see a lot of use defensively, right? I still see some ways that you could use her defensively and at least force people to use a really good team, right? Because sometimes with an Omicron, guys, and I'll pause on her for a good example of this. A lot of people are saying, oh, you want to use her in offense because she can kill all these GLs. The other thing to think about if you put her on defense, right? Your opponent is going to have to use a really good team. Maybe your opponent uses a GL, right? Is that, is that a fair trade? Yes. Like, I would have killed a GL. They have to use a GL to kill her, right? Sometimes just because you don't get a hold with a team doesn't mean they failed. Because there are multiple times I said, we're going to go down to our A tier next, right? And I'm going to click on a character. So let's go to our Admiral Raddus. He's in the A tier. And this kind of continues what I was saying with Dr. Aphra. I use him on defense. Offensively, he's probably just as good. Defensively, I don't always get holds with him. But the teams in his zone, like my bounty hunters, have gotten plenty of holds because I think people had to use something on Raddus and they ran out of stuff to use on my other teams. So sometimes the best use of an Omicron on defense is to take away that top tier counter they have and force them to make riskier plays, failing on teams that they shouldn't, right? So I want to put that out here. Admiral Raddus's leadership is just so good. It is, both 3v3 and 5v5. Definitely a little bit better in 5v5 because you get more Rogue One allies, but still a very, very good character. One that has completely changed the way that I've been able to play Grand Arena. I really love this kit, and obviously it makes his ship the Profundity faster, so it's one of those Omicrons that belongs in the A tier. You're not really killing Galactic Legends with this, and there's a lot of, off-matic, non-GL counters to his Omicron, but it's still a very good team and one that is really well worth your time investing in. Starkiller is next in the A tier. And it hurt me a little bit to move him out of that royalty tier, but why I moved him down is that I don't like having tons of people inside of that royalty tier, right? I kind of like to keep that, unique and good. So Starkiller's an A tier character. He can kill some Galactic Legends, but there's a lot of off-meta counters to him on defense. And I think that, one of the other things you've got to keep in mind here is that he, there are some things that he just won't beat, right? Like he's not beating a Jedi Master Kenobi, and when he's on defense, guys, I can use some non-GL squads to beat him. When you bring him on offense, you're still taking a risk that if you lose, you could have a very potentially bad cleanup, right? So I really love this character. I just think he belongs in the A tier. I think that's a solid ranking for him. I don't think he's quite on that level of royalty tier for me. All right, next is Iden Versio. Very similar to Starkiller. She doesn't have as much upward punching, right? But there are more limited counters to Iden than obviously any Galactic Legend is going to be Iden Versio. But Wampa's a good counter for her. General Skywalker, which is expensive, right? And it's not going to be good banners. You can use a Darth Treya to beat her, Savaja Press. There's limited counters to Iden because of the way her kit works. And that's really beneficial for people, right? A tier also because offensively, there's a lot she can do, especially with low gear. A low gear Iden team can still manhandle a Commander Luke Skywalker team. She's a character I would love to gear up. I just have not ever gotten a chance to getting around to gearing her. So I want to keep her in this A tier because I think it's important to show just how good, at low gear, guys, she's beaten full relic CLS teams. So definitely a really great Omicron, especially if you're on a budget. Qui-Gon Jinn is next. And this Omicron, guys, is amazing. I love this Omicron. Obviously, you want Jedi Knight Anakin, and you need Galactic Republic Jedi for this, right? It's very important that it's Galactic Republic Jedi that are with him. So we're getting that Coyote Mundi, bonus and stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. What I think is so good about this Omicron, right? I will say this. What I think is so good about it is there's limited counters. It is one of those teams that Bad Batch is going to solo this Bad Batch, not solo this, but Bad Batch is going to compete this for 65 banners, right? Sure. But if your Bad Batch fails, right, you've got to clean up a full Jedi team. Obviously, you won't have his leadership anymore, but those characters are going to be at full health and protection, right? And if you have Coyote Mundi in there that's still elite, it still takes some stuff to clean up. So I really do like this Omicron. It takes a character you otherwise wouldn't have used, right? For me, I've got Cam and Jedi Knight Anakin are the two characters in that squad that actually I would use. And then Ayla, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Mace Windu, who I would maybe use, right? I could find a use for him. But you're taking some leftover Jedi and making a really, really good team. I did debate moving him to the B tier because unlike a lot of these other Omicrons, right? The one caveat here is this is normally a one-trick pony, right? That you get your hold, but your opponent's still going to get through. Compared to somebody like Iden or Starkiller, where if you mess up on that team and everybody's still alive, right? Or Starkiller could be still alive, and that's a full team you have to clean up. Qui-Gon, the only way to get at the team is to kill him. So it's normally a one-trick pony. It's not going to get more than a single hold. Lastly on this list is Dash Rendar. I still think this is a great Omicron if you have his team, right, with Vandor Chewbacca constantly reviving. It's something that with the Omicron, again, one of the big things you guys are kind of hearing me say, right, it just takes more specific teams to beat this, right? It takes a little bit more planning, a little bit more understanding of how it comes together to beat him. So I really think he's well suited inside of this A tier, right? So then we have our A tier for 3v3 where I've put BT1 and Trip 0. They could potentially move into this tier with Dr. Aphra in the A+ tier. I just don't know yet. We haven't seen them in 3v3. We've seen her in 5v5. We know she's really good. I think I don't know if I mentioned this. I'm going to mention it again. She's down in A+ only because this is a 5v5 only. Same thing with these guys down here. They're their own they're in their own bracket because it's 3v3 specific, right, for each of them. Trying to think which ones are there. 3v3 Grand Arena right there. And is it on this one or here? 3v3 Grand Arenas again. So one of those situations where I think they're going to be good in 3v3, right? Probably with Dr. Aphra is my assumption, but they're only 3v3. So, where you would have invested, say, 3 total Omicrons in Star Killer to use him in every game mode, looks like you're investing, 4 or 5 between the Aphra squad to get them, for just 5v5 and 3v3 coverage. So I want to call them out in that A tier, but below them to say that, they're only 3v3 viability. Next is the B tier. So Zam is down here in B only because her Omicron, while it still works in 3v3, it loses value because it's dependent upon each of her bounty hunter allies. So she's not gaining as many stats when she's in 3v3 as she is 5v5. And the other thing I'll say with this is that it's one of those Omicrons that doesn't really change the teams you would use to beat bounty hunters. It might change a little bit of your strategy. You might use a little bit of a better team, but it doesn't take them and allow them to beat a team that they couldn't beat without this Omicron, right? That's maybe the best way to say it, that this will make it easier for you because they'll be faster, you'll be thicker, but it's not exactly going to make them Galactic Legend level killers, right? We've shown that bounty hunters without Zam beat Lord Vader with the right team. They don't really need her to do that, right? So just want to, throw that out there. Next character is Hondo, and I struggled with Hondo. The thing that I, with his Omicron, I'm trying to think, is it this just good business? This is a pretty good Omicron, but it's the fact that he doesn't really have a true team yet, right? We don't really know what his full, we don't know what his, real role is yet in the game. He's kind of this plug and play, and a lot of the footage you see of him in Grand Arena all has to do with when he's the last person left. And so sure, you're going to get a clear on a team, but you've dropped so many banners that he's not like an efficient Omicron, right? Like a lot of these other Omicrons make your team more efficient. This one, you're waiting for your team to die and then Hondo's going to solo something, right? So, he's down here in the B tier because it is good. You can do some really nice things with it, but keep in mind that he doesn't really have that full team yet that we've seen. And I think it's coming. We just don't know where and when. Next is Darth Talon. Her Omicron looks so good, right? It's all about placing her with the Sith Triumvirate, right? Which is Pain and Isolate, which come from Traya and Scion. The one problem I have with this Omicron is that in a 3v3 scenario, you're going to just run the full Sith trio, and so she kind of gets kicked to the curb where no one's inflicting Isolate or Pain, right? So it's not really a true 5v5 Omicron because you could run her and just move Nihilus out of that Sith team, but I think Nihilus is a better third in that team than she is, right? So I kind of have her in this B tier that for 5v5, this is going to be really good, especially with that new Traya Omicron. You're just going to create this super team if you have this, but it's not one that I feel is 100% necessary, but boosts the level of that team. Next is Asajj Ventress. Kind of the same story. I do think that it makes the Night Sisters much better. It adds additional health, which is great. But they can also recover protection, which was a huge thing for Night Sisters, was that they couldn't recover protection, which limits the amount of banners you could get in GAC. With this protection recovery, they're going to be a lot better. I do think it just is going to be completely, if you have a Night Sister team built, I would slap it on. If you don't have a good Night Sister team built, this isn't 100% necessary. I have thought about equipping this because I do have some Night Sisters, but I don't really use them with Asajj that much, so just kind of had to kick her to the curb a little bit. All right, that was the B tier. So now we're going to move into the B tier butt. So B tier butt, we've got Luminara, who she just got a new one, Admiral Akbar, and First Order TIE Pilot. For these two characters, it's the butt that you really need them on offense. They're not defensive whatsoever. Just because they're very easy to counter, right? Like the First Order TIE Pilot, if you put that in a certain team, Enfys Nest is going to solo it, right? She will. Enfys Nest can solo this team with like putting it with Phasma. I've done it myself. Enfys Nest solos that team. Admiral Akbar is one that's interesting. Oops. Because, let me just back out of that so I go back in. It's interesting. On offense, he can manipulate turn meters so much for his team with the right comp. It's very, team composition dependent. Like you need Stormtrooper Han and Leia. And, I equipped it because I thought it had a lot more use. And it's been okay, but nothing fantastic. Luminara's actually looks very good, right? I mean, it turns her healing into a dispel. She's going to gain speed. They'll recover protection, critical. I mean, it adds all this stuff, guys, right? It's a wall of text. The reason I have it in this butt category is I still don't know that it's enough to warrant I think what it's going to be good for is those people in the end game who need to find different uses for Hermit Yoda, that you could potentially use Luminara to kind of take the place of a Hermit Yoda where, he's there. Not only he does some really good things that I think Luminara won't, but you've got an additional cleanse somewhere, which I think is good. I don't know. I guess for me, I just don't see enough value in. There's a lot of Jedi that do what she does, so it'll give you some more flexibility, but I don't think it's going to inherently change the way you go and counter a lot of the Jedi teams that we beat, right? Like, Sith Eternal, you put Luminara in that team, Sith Eternal is still going to do just fine, right? So I don't know. I think it's a good Omicron, but not one that I'm, like, chomping at the bit for people to get. So that's why it's the B tier, but, like, very situational, and then these guys just offensive. Tusken Raider is a B tier for 3v3 only because, it's locked by that. In 3v3, this is a great Omicron, right? Because, if you've built up your Tuskens for this purpose, right, you've got a good team in 3v3. It takes some planning to take them out, right? They're not just like a gimme. Where I get hesitant with this is there's a lot of ways to counter it. Offensively, it can do some nice things. A lot of people just place it on defense as like an annoying, hey, go figure this out. But it's not one that I've had, that people get like completely stumped by, right? I think everybody's kind of figured out how to beat it now. So we have the C tier. And I'm going to get a little flack for this by putting Chrysanthemum here because I think his Omicron is really good. Where is it at? Champion of the Fighting Pits, right? So he's going to gain additional max protection. Well, they have, enemies have reduced potency. He's immune to ability block and cooldown increase. And, he'll taunt, right? There's all this really good stuff in here. The reason he's in this C tier is that it's not necessary to have that Omicron for Jabba to be good, right? It's a good Omicron. It makes the Jabba team a little bit more difficult, but like Jabba's already so good. Like it's not like it makes Jabba unkillable or that, you can't use XYZ to beat it, right? And that's where I think, when I look for Omicrons, right, when I'm looking at an Omicron, it's, does it fundamentally change what that team does? And with Chrysanthemum's Omicron, it doesn't fundamentally change what Jabba does, so that's why we've got him in the C tier. Princess Leia is also in the C tier. It's good, right? It's really meant for the Admiral Akbar Omicron. And I think, again, it's good, but like if Admiral Akbar is a B, she can't be higher than him, and she can't be the same tier as him because you can use Princess Leia with Admiral Akbar's Omicron and get some use. Hers is not really, I don't know. I don't think it's that good outside of like that Admiral Akbar team, so she just belongs in the C tier, guys. Same with our Ewoks. I think offensively, this is probably a better one. But like defensively, there's just a lot of stuff that like Enfys Nest will still solo Ewoks, Wampa, Savage, even like, Wampa, like, I don't know. There's not enough in here that, I don't know. What's the wording I want to use? I don't think there's enough in here to take this above like a C tier. I don't think Ewoks have enough in their kits to make this something that people are going to get consistent holds with, right? if it added what their like galactic challenge bonuses of like attacks out of turn or stuns, like if they just added that little bit, you attack out of turn, you're gonna get stunned. Like right away, I would bump this up to like almost the A tier, right? Because that would limit the counters, but it doesn't really limit what teams counter them. It makes it a little bit more difficult, but it's not going to change the way you counter this team. So C tier it is for them. All right. Getting towards the end here, guys. So then we have the Krennic, and I just know, right? This is what I'll say. Like, it's all about having Death Trooper present, right? The thing is, Death Trooper's better with Iden than he is with Krennic. So this Omicron would limit you being able to use Death Trooper with Iden Versio. And I just don't think it's good enough that, you know, I'd rather have Death Trooper with my Iden than with Krennic. So he's got to be in this just no category that, you know, there's not enough there. And then obviously Rose Tico at the end. Just, I don't see any point in this Omicron. I don't understand this. Like, I'm never going to use this Omicron in any way, shape, or form because the resistance just, like, you're not going to use it with Galactic Legends Ray. And, like, the other resistance teams, like, it doesn't change what they do. So why would I don't know. I don't think I think she's a horrible character. Only reason she's any, like, decent anymore is she has a ship, which is, like, a mediocre ship. It at least makes the resistance fleet a little bit harder. But, guys, just no. Don't ever get that Omicron. But, yeah, guys, that's the video. That's the rankings. It's changed a little bit. Some of the stuff has stayed the same. But let me know what your thoughts are, right? Love to hear from you guys if you agree with this. If you don't agree with this list, let me know. But yeah, guys, again, love GAC. Hopefully this gets to you in time that you can maybe add an Omicron that you don't have in your roster right now. But that's it, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. I love every single one of you. May the Force be with you. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Cheers.